Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and joining me once again is Allison.
Hello.
This is going to be our discussion of Battlestar Galactica, the miniseries part 2. We already did part 1, of course. Spoilers for this episode, but we'll keep spoilers for the future stuff. We won't do it unless we really want to at the very end. We'll give you a warning so you can leave. But we talked about part 1, and the cliffhanger of that was, of course, the threat that Colonial 1 was going to be bombed, and Lee and Roslin and all the other humans and survivors were all dead. Of course, that's not really what was going to happen, as we expected. But what did you think of the second part of the miniseries, Allison?
I thought it was pretty good. Once I started watching it, I did remember what had happened. Although I think originally everything I really remembered was from the first half of the miniseries. But this sort of takes us to the kind of the philosophies and what our different leadership is believing about how to proceed with the fate of humanity, the war with the Cylons, etc.
Yeah, I thought this part was maybe a little more uneven compared to the first half, just because the first half of this 90-minute episode is mostly kind of like dealing with the fallout of what the first half was. It almost feels like the everyone thinking Apollo and Roslin are dead almost felt like a not a chore, but like something they had to kind of address, but it also didn't feel like they wanted to milk that much out of it either. Like, there's a little bit of Adama looking sad at the start of the episode, and Ty patting him on the back, and like everyone sort of sucking it up and whatnot, but for the most part, it's like, like, we don't even make that big of a deal out of, oh, they're actually all alive, right? It's kind of like...
It's really not. It's very sort of subtle. I think Tyrell telling Starbuck, or sort of, he doesn't come right out and say Adama's dead, but it's so clearly implied that they believe he's gone that almost hit me more.
Yeah, no, I get it. But I do think, though, the back half of the episode, once we get to kind of like... Because I think one of the things that this show is very good at, once it really gets into it, is really cool setups for tense... I guess we'll call them action scenes, but like, by the end of this miniseries, we get a very simple idea of, okay, we all have to come out of this cloud that's kind of protecting us right now, and we're going to have all the civilian ships jump with a hyperlate jump. But we have to protect them from the Cylon fleet whilst they're jumping, and it's only once all the civilian ships are gone can we jump ourselves, themselves being the Galactica. I actually think that's just a simple, good action premise of you understand the stakes, the rules are simple, but you understand why they have to kind of hold off. And it really sets up, I think, by the end of this episode, and Roslin says this a couple of times throughout this episode, is this fleet, all it has for protection is Galactica. We have one warship that is capable of actually fighting off any of the enemies, and it has to come with these people to protect them, and that's it. And a big part of this episode, of course, is to go along with that, is Roslin convincing Adama and co, the war is over, there's nothing to go and fight, everything else is already gone, this is about running away and actually maybe the human race having a chance of continuing. So that, to me, that's the big dramatic sort of like lesson by the end of this episode, is that realization and decision.
Or what stood out the most to me is how good of a leader Roslin is. As much as everybody poo-poos, oh, that school teacher, you're going to listen to her. We did see this from the beginning when the realization struck into her in the first part that she was now the president, effectively. And it's this question of, oh, are you listening to her? But no, she takes command. She listens to the concerns that people have. And she is trying to best make what in one instance is an incredibly difficult decision to save as many people as is possible, even though they can't save everyone, because the Cylons are bearing down on them and not all of the ships have the FTL capability. So some people are going to be left behind to die, but she says, no, we have to take the people we can take, because otherwise we will be able to save no one. And that, she doesn't take that lightly, but she does make that choice, and we see her not openly like battling with Adama, but a little bit of a test of wills, perhaps, to figure out the leadership and what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, to go to that decision she had to make. I mean, the whole thing is that as they're collecting these civilian ships, and she's going around, and we see her go to like the botanical ship that's there. And she's talking to the captain and saying, we're going to go around and see what everyone needs fuel-wise and things like that. I promise that'll happen later today, you've got my word. And then she runs into a little girl who happens to be on her own, and it turns out that she was with her grandparents, but her grandparents are sick, and the girl's expecting to still go home to Caprica to reunite with her parents. And everyone in the room knows that's not going to happen, but we're just letting her think that for now, because how the hell else do you say it to her? So when the decision comes, which is that the Cylons are on their way, they know that we're here probably, they're going to come, we don't have time to transport all the remaining civilians from the ships that don't have FTL drives, meaning they can jump away, to the ships that do have that. And that means we have to make a choice right now, because if we hang around any longer, we might all just die. They might just appear in the middle of us and nuke us all to death. However, by jumping away right now, we're leaving behind anyone who's not been transferred over, which, we don't necessarily have like a number in that necessarily, but at least probably a few thousand. And yeah, that's kind of the thing. And Billy points out that, hey, that little girl you met earlier that broke your heart, yeah, she's on the ship that can't jump. So we actually kind of cut to the girl like playing with her doll as Rosalind's like sitting there all like dramatic and moody as the Cylons show up, and you hear like other ship captains or pilots over the comms begging Colonial One, like, please,
don't leave us behind. Yeah.
So it's a super, like, I like it quite a bit. I will say the cutting to the girl, like, I think Billy just saying that girl's ship can't make the jump, I think that was the dramatic bit there. I think that was the moment where, oh, that hits really hard. I think actually cutting to her playing with her doll and like singing to her doll as all this was happening was maybe just a little...
Then seeing this screen go white and what is clearly a commercial break originally, maybe that was a bit much.
Yeah, I mean, not so much the commercial break aspect, but just it just felt a little bit, I don't want to say manipulative, right? But it's almost like they were just ratcheting it up too much by actually cutting to the girl and saying, she has no idea she's about to die. Look at her, all willfully ignorant and so on. Like, I think the moment of Billy just saying, that girl's going to die, and like, that's not the exact words he says, but him basically saying that and walking out and letting her just sit there and, like, I think it'd have been more powerful to just stay with her on that scene and just watch her face as she's like processing that she's left this girl to die.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It did seem like, now we have to watch, but assumedly she had a quick and relatively painless death. So
you'd hope a bunch of nukes would be quick, if nothing else. So I mean that's kind of, I mean, honestly, that's kind of the biggest thing that happens in the first half of the episode, is that choice and the running away. Like that's really kind of, because I remember the parts of this that I don't think are as exciting up front is, like, when they get to the munitions depot, the Galactica, and they run into a guy that's there. Now obviously he ends up being potentially quite important in some ways, but the actual standoff and Adama being trapped with them once, like, this rogue, like, honestly look a bit stupid. They let a grenade or whatever it is like roll off the table and go off, and everyone has to duck for cover, but it puts Adama in this trap position with this unknown man who happened to be on this munitions station when they arrived. And I think some of that's a little bit like, okay, I'm waiting for it to get to the... Now, don't get me wrong, this being how Adama learns that Cylons can look like humans now, there's like an interesting development because of it by the end, but I just, once they get in there and they're trapped, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm kind of... And maybe part of this is because I can remember who this guy is, so I'm just kind of like waiting for it to... Like, maybe this may be more of a rewatch problem than an actual upfront problem of like pacing necessarily.
That's fair. His name is Leoben, by the way.
Leoben, yes. This was one that I did not remember the name. I remember his face very vividly, but his name did not come to mind.
We see Cyril bringing to the station a whole bunch of guys to, offload as many munitions as they can, and they find this guy here who they assume is just there sort of to steal and sell munitions. So they get into a little bit of a standoff with him. It resolves pretty quickly. It's not that much of a big deal, that, the argument and everything that happens there. I don't know. Do you want to talk about the Adama part more first? Because there's other things that happen
Well, I mean, the Adama stuff with Leoben is kind of like, Leoben looks sick. He says he's got allergies, and then Adama kind of puts two and two together because, and this is maybe something that could have been maybe set up a bit more eloquently, is that this storm that's around this station's built here and stationed here because whatever's in this cloud, whatever magnetic stuff's happening, plays haywire with Cylon technology. So even in their human-like form that he's in, it's making him sick. And Adama kind of eventually pieces this together. I think this comes a little bit like an out-of-nowhere thing to us, the audience, because there's nothing to have suggested that there's anything that would, do this to them. Maybe there was like a small line or something last part where they said, oh yeah, we'll go to that station, which is built in the anti-Cylon cloud, but I don't think they said anything like that.
I think they mentioned silica, which is a real thing, doing something to the pathways of their brains, or whatever you call a brain in there. Adama says something along those lines.
CPU.
It interferes with their processing or with their hardware or their connections or something.
Yeah, and the fight that comes from this is just kind of like, it's just Adama hitting them with a torch over and over again. There's a bit of a struggle. Having said that, though, this is the sort of thing where the actual fight scene and the build up to finding it out is probably one of the least interesting parts of this episode. But the outcome of it, though, which is, oh shit, they can look like us now, and now we all know that, or at least a few people at the top now know that. It becomes about trying to deal with that. Okay, anyone could be a Cylon. We have to think about that now. So I like the reaction to that vital piece of information that's going to be such a big part of the show, is that anyone could be a Cylon, and this obviously dovetails into everything that's going on with Baltar, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But yeah. But like I said, though, for me, where the episode really started to sing was when when the civilian ships did end up with the Galactica at this station, and then we really started to get Adama and Roslin intermingling. We got Baltar, Baltar was fine when he was sitting on the little, raptor and he's seeing Six again, but it's when she starts pointing out things where you start to think, wait, is this just in his head? Because she seems to be pointing out things that he wouldn't know, or maybe he's noticing and his subconscious is trying to tell him in this weird way. It's like, oh, this is interesting.
It's kind of a mystery, what's really going on, for sure, and I think that remains for a while. Yeah, because she even suggests, the perhaps figment of his imagination even suggests, did I plant a chip in your brain or something to make you see me? And that doesn't seem completely out of the range of possibility either.
It's honestly, it seems so plausible that I'd say it's 50-50. Either he's just seen her in his head, or they're beaming her into him, and I don't know. Admittedly, I don't know if this is something that he considers later in the show, or if this is just an idea I had at the time, or I'm having it now again, is that, or they just straight up, because they've already said that they can download their brains into new bodies. I'm almost wondering at this point, oh, is this even his original body? Did they just take his brain and shove it into a Baltar Cylon style body? Honestly, all of these possibilities are all completely open, especially since Six does, or Six in his head, which again, this is the unreliable information giver here, because what she's saying true or not, and is it just in his head, because therefore it is all bullshit, even though some of the things she says turn out to be true. But she does say that there's 12 Cylon models, but some of them don't even know they're Cylons. Some of them are sleeper agents and won't even know it until they're activated or woken up. So it's okay, you're presenting a lot of mystery box style things here. I was saying last episode that this was very much in that era of Lost, even though this kind of came a little bit first. But it really does have those mystery things. You've got who are the Cylons, who could they be? And then you've also got the thing that the end of this sets up about Earth, which we'll get to later. But these are kind of the long running, what could this be, and what does it mean, and so on and so on. But yeah, so fun stuff there.
Can we go back a little bit, though? Because I wanted to mention a couple things when Sharon first comes aboard the
Sure.
Colonial One ship and brings aboard Baltar, who gets introduced to Rosalind, and she's like, "Oh, great, you can be our scientific advisor on all Cylon matters." He just kind of smoothly why would I know anything about the Cylons, kind of, but yes, of course, I shall serve with honor and dignity. You see what a chameleon Gaius Baltar is going to be. Not that we didn't already probably think that, but that he is absolutely going to save his own skin above anyone or any other concerns, and we see that kind of play out a little later in the episode. One other thing, though, that I absolutely have to mention is that Sharon is talking to a little kid, one of the kids they saved on the ship, on the Raptor.
Yes.
And I know this is insignificant to you, but I have to bring it up. His name is Boxy, and that is a throwback to the original show where there was an annoying little kid named Boxy. So I just had to toss that in.
Well, it's funny you say that, because it really feels like in this episode they're setting him up to be the kid that's going to be around as a regular character. And if my memory serves me correctly, I don't think we ever see this little shit again.
No. He does almost kind of have the 70s bowl cut going on. It's not quite as extreme as it would have been back then, but I just, when he said his name, when I was rewatching this episode, I laughed out loud because I know that's something from the original. So
I was gonna say that's one of those things where, like, I'd forgotten completely, and then I saw the kids, like, in this episode talking to us. Oh yeah, I remember them kind of setting this kid up, but I'm not surprised I forgot him, because I don't think we do see him again at all.
I don't think so either. I did want to also just mention, though, when aboard the Battlestar Galactica, they start getting the message when they're at Ragnar of ships incoming, and they think it's the Cylons, and then they realize that it's colonial ships, and it is what turns out to be the rest of the fleet. It's this great, like, tense moment, and then this great, like, release of, is it real, or are these really other colonial ships coming? But Rosalind, that's when they do the FTL jump, and Rosalind brings the rest of the colonial ships that she's been able to gather, because she knew that's where Adama was going.
Yeah. Because Dee's answering or she's the one in the comms saying, "Oh, we've got signals incoming," and she's like, "Oh no, they're colonials." I'm trying really hard, by the way, not to call her Sweet Dee, because there's a main character in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia called Dee, and that's her nickname. So it's taken a little bit of willpower not to call her Sweet Dee.
Okay, or we could just say what in reality she is. She's the Uhura of BSG. I mean,
that is her job description. Yes, I mean, I'm sure that's what they put on the payslip. You're the Uhura of Battlestar Galactica. Like I said, one of the big things that this show does well is sort of simple setups and payoffs to, like, here's the plan, here's what we have to execute, but then when you actually watch the plan unfold, it's actually very satisfying to watch. And that's kind of what happens in the back half of this. But it's also the build-up to it, because the build-up to it is that Adama doesn't want to stay with the civilians. He's like, no, we're going to go back and we're going to fight this war. We're going to fight Cylons. We're going to go and track them down. And that's what Ty was saying earlier on in the episode. But the first part of the miniseries clearly showed us that Adama is the more, because when we see Ty talking about Starbuck in the first part, he's like, oh, she's a menace, she's a, scoundrel, and I don't like her, and put her in the brig. And Adama's like, she's the best pilot we've got. Like, I know she's got a bit of an attitude, but you're a bit of a hard ass. Can you try and come at her with an even keel kind of thing?
Could you not, basically? Could you just not?
Yeah, right? So the fact that he's echoing what Ty thinks for a lot of this episode, but you're kind of hoping, but you're the one who has the more level head, so can you please like consider what Rosalind's saying to you? And funnily enough, it's actually, one of the things Rosalind says to him is that, like, the only chance our race have got to survive is if we get away and we start having some damn babies, because there's only 50,000 of us. And there's a moment on the Galactica command deck where he looks over, and it just so happens that Dee's talking to Billy, and they had their weird kiss earlier on, so they're kind of smelling at each other. And Adama's
just a flirtation there, yeah.
And Adama just out of nowhere says, they better start having babies. And Ty turns around, looks back at him, and goes, "Is that an order?" Which I thought was a really funny line. But that's the moment where he changes his mind. He sees these young people and realizes that these young people won't have a future if they stay and fight this. They're just all going to be, even if some of them survive, like how many are going to survive? Is it going to be enough to have a civilization kind of thing? So I think it's a good moment, and it's the first of, I think, many moments in Battlestar Galactica where a big decision rests on Obama's shoulder. Did I say Obama? Adama's shoulders. That's a Freudian slip. Rests on Adama's shoulders, and like it's kind of satisfying to see him get to that point where he makes, usually I would say, the right choice. Maybe not always, but in my head I think of Adama as being the wise leader of the group, even if he does lean certain ways when it comes to like, I want to fight. I don't want to, whatever.
No, I agree with all of that, and I think that Adama sort of changing his tune here about being more of a defense and more of the protection of the civilian fleet rather than the lead warship in a war that, as Rosalind says, it's over and we lost. And that's a hard thing, I think, for the military types to hear at first. They were attacked. They're going to go back out and keep fighting. Wait a second, but everybody else who was fighting is already gone. It's only because of Adama's super old-fashioned, we're not going to network anything on this ship, that it wound up being that the Galactica wasn't destroyed with everything else. And when Lee Adama shows up, when Apollo shows up on the Galactica, he kind of finds out that it's only because he was flying his father's really old ship that he survived, because a bunch of the other Vipers were just completely wiped out because they were the newer ships that had that same kind of technology in them.
Well, to be more precise, they had Gaius Baltar's operating system in them, I think is what we learn.
We learned that a little later. You're right, because I didn't have that here with the notes. I wanted to mention the moment where Apollo and Starbuck reunite, and it's not like this cheesy, oh my God, you're alive. They're still like bantering back and forth to each other. And I kind of love that. Like, you see so much about how the relationship is, but clearly she's so happy he's alive, but it's still not like sentimental or schmaltzy or anything else like that. And then later on, she actually confesses to Adama, to Apollo, that his brother Zach, the one who died, failed basic flight. And this is like her deepest, darkest sin, is that because they were in a relationship, she let him pass it, but he shouldn't have. He really wasn't that good of a flyer, and that's why he died. So if she hadn't passed him, in her mind, he wouldn't have died.
Yeah, and the bantering notably stops at that point, because that's a very serious confession, and effectively why Zach died is because he was in a cockpit when he shouldn't have been, probably during a combat scenario of some kind. I assume anyway. I mean, I don't remember the exact specifics. I know we get into it more later in the series, so we'll find out. It's again, I'm surprised by how much of this we got in these first 2 episodes. Like, I didn't remember these details about her admitting that coming till later. I thought that was like a late season 1 reveal or something like that, So it's cool that they've already fleshed some of these characters out a little bit and given them a chance to kind of grow. And I think by the time we get to the end of this part and there's a little montage, as Adama's saying goodnight to Apollo, we get a montage of like Ty looking at a bottle of booze because Starbucks called him a drunk, and he's like debating, am I still a drunk? Am I straightening myself up? We cut to whoever else at the time, and it's sort of like, there's actually a list of characters who have established their personal issues and they're kind of fighting with themselves already, whether or not they're trying to get over these things. Because even Adama and Apollo, it's not like they have some big grand like happy ending here. They just kind of like, they're aware that they're glad that they're both alive, and they realize that they've got more to talk about. But even Adama says, let's just save like the next bit of this for another day. Like, we've had a long day as it is, right? We're clearly both happy to still be around, and let's leave it there for now. And I think that shows a little bit of restraint, which is nice. So, but I do want to go back to Baltar, because he's got a juicy bit of plot here. Actually, once he's on the once he's on the ship, because he is talking to Six in his head, right? And she's been all flirty. In fact, at one point she starts like putting her hand down, and you're like, wait, what does this look like to someone else in the room? And you do actually get to see someone else walk up, and he's sitting there like he's in the middle of an orgasm, like just looking like a crazy man. But the more serious side of this, though, is she points out a couple things. One, like, there could be another Cylon on the ship, specifically because there's this device above the command deck, which is a Cylon device that he recognizes from her bag. And that's kind of how they sort of, like, they toe the line a little bit of, like, is he just remembering it from seeing it before, and so his subconscious has got it to, like, use it as a bit of information, or is it something that this version of 6 is actively telling him for the first time? So they're really riding the line there for the mystery's sake. But he's like, oh shit, there must be another Cylon on board. How do I deal with this? And he looks over at Doral, the museum tour guy from the first part, who's still around.
It's also the same guy who in the first part was complaining about a woman being in charge and making decisions.
That was him, yes. And he's like, oh, I need a scapegoat. I need someone to, like, blame and say they're a baddie on the station to use as an excuse. Because he wants to warn everyone about this device because he knows it's bad that it's there, but he can't admit why he knows it's there. Yeah, he can't tell them that. So he's like, okay, I need to blame it on someone else. He's going to blame it on him. And then almost like divine intervention, almost like there's a plan to all this, he is presented with, oh, we know that there's humans that look like, or Cylons that look like humans now. Mr. Baltar, Dr. Baltar, we want you to find a way to detect them and tell us if anyone's a Cylon. They've literally given him a blank check to write down someone's name and said, he's a Cylon. Throw him in the brig, throw him out the airlock, whatever you're going to do, but it's him. So we get this scene where they've thrown this guy, Doral, in, like, behind bars, and he's screaming, I'm a human, I'm not a Cylon, I grew up here. And it's entertaining to watch because Baltar is having to stand there in line. Honestly, like you were saying earlier, he's a bit of a chameleon. I do think sometimes it's actually quite funny watching him be very bad at lying.
It is.
Because Ty is, like, staring at him while he's explaining. And I think he's just lucky that Ty doesn't have a brain for science. Otherwise, he'd be seeing through every bit of bullshit that Baltar's spewing out of his mouth during this scene to justify.
Yeah, the irregularities in the readings, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's absolute. You can tell how fast he's tap dancing, trying to come up with something that will sound convincing.
Yeah, and you can see
Ty's convinced enough.
You can see here in the digits here that I've reversed the polarity, and that's resulted in this DNA strand here and blah blah blah. He's just talking nonsense, and it's an entertaining sequence because of his performance. But this is actually like one of the first. He tells them about the device, of course, as well. Just to sort of tap that onto the end of the scene. Yeah, just enough to, like, make them look at it and go and inspect it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, this wasn't on the manifest." And they kind of, like, Ty's giving them shit. Why did no one notice this? And they're like, "Well, because we were shutting down and we thought it was part of the museum stuff." And it's like, that's actually a pretty fair excuse, to be honest. In the context of what the ship was doing before this all happened, that was
a day or two ago. Yeah.
That's completely fair. But this actually ends up being something that Baltar, somehow, with no science, he did not build a detection system. He's not done that. He just picked this guy and said he's a Cylon. At the end of the episode, we find out he was right. He is a Cylon. Which is wonderfully funny.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It is, though, because honestly, you and I both know that watching it this time, but the first time we didn't, right? And we're thinking, like, okay, obviously he's just accusing some random human he doesn't like in order to get rid of him. And now watching it, it was kind of just like, how the hell did he get so lucky?
Well, that's kind of the big thing, right? Is this idea of, like, because I mean, 6 even in this episode starts talking about God and God's plan and all that, and it's like, wait, has he been touched by the divine, like, intervention to, like, make him the chosen one or make him right about everything? Or
that's it. Yep.
Yeah. So
Baltar is blessed by the gods.
But it's
Lords of Cobol.
It's fun though, because even when he's explaining it, because they even put out, like, plot holes in his explanation where they're saying, well, this cloud's supposed to make Cylon sick and we're still in the cloud. Why is he not sick? And he's like, well, I can only just theorize that it takes some time. The other guy was here for, like, several hours. But I actually did notice at the end of the episode, when we cut to inside that station where they've locked him away before they leave,
he's not looking so good.
Yeah, he looks kind of sick, and I'm like, oh, it is actually there. Like, they actually did kind of pay that off. He is sick. And then in walks like 4 number 6s, like 4 of the of Leobins, and then the big reveal, of course, at the end is that a Sharon, a boomer, walks in.
Yeah.
At the end, revealing that
there's another Doral there as well.
Yeah.
A couple of robo models, and then it pauses and then pans to Sharon.
Yeah, but she is a Cylon, and I think we don't really know for sure if the boomer, and this is what I like about the call signs, is that boomer specifically refers to the one that's on Galactica. That's not all Sharons are boomers, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're a boomer, of course, but that's...
Fight me, I'm Gen X.
Like, come on, it was low-hanging fruit, all right? I had to make the joke.
My mother's a baby boomer.
Like,
I'm not that old, Peter.
But what I'm saying is, though, is that the like having the call signs makes it easy to distinguish between like different type, the same person. If when that comes up, and I think this is a good example of it, is who we see at the end technically isn't Boomer. She's just a Sharon, but yeah, she's
a Sharon model. Yeah.
So we don't actually know right now, on the context of this episode, if Boomer on the station, or on the ship, I should say, if she is aware of what she is, because Six set it up earlier in the episode that maybe some of them don't know what they are.
There's Cylon sleeper agents, so to speak.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
It is. I wonder if that'll come up.
I'm pretty sure it's going to come up in one way or another in the near future. I will say that. So no, I mean that's a big fun reveal. Although to be honest, like I like that final scene. Right, it's a fun reveal. To me, though, the real hook at the end of the miniseries isn't that. And admittedly, if you'd seen the original series, this wouldn't be that surprising. But when I watched the miniseries for the first time, I had never seen the original show. I didn't know this element of the lore. So after all said and done, after we have our big action scene where everyone gets away, and we have Starbuck saving Apollo, whose ship breaks down or whatever, and there's a whole big set piece, fun stuff, super exciting. Ship jumps away.
Awesome action scene, crazy. Starbuck is crazy, yeah. Yeah,
and the missiles are flying towards it as it jumps away, so it's really cool eerie shot, beautiful stuff. They have this, funeral ceremony effectively for everyone on the ship who's died, and they get to the end, and the prophet lady, Alosha is her name, she says, "So say we all." It's the first time I think we hear that in the show. And all the military and whoever else is there all respond, "So say we all," but it's kind of like half of them say it and they kind of mumble it, and it's not really, there's not a lot of passion in it, right? And Adama turns around, he's like shocked, he's like annoyed, he's upset, he's like, wait, he's like, "So say we all," and they all say it a little bit more. He's like, "So say we all," and he screams at them, and they say it a bit louder. And he realizes in this moment that everyone is defeated. Everyone feels at the end of their tether, and the way he puts it is like, you're thinking to yourselves, were these people who died right away the lucky ones because they got to go quick, and we have to die out in space slowly, and so on. He makes this big speech, try to give them hope. And the way he gives them hope is that he talks about the 12 colonies and all the rest of it, and he says, but there was a 13th colony, right?
And lost 13th colony called.
And it turns back to Alosha, and she's like, yeah, there was a 13th colony that broke away in the early days. It went to a planet called Earth. I remember when I first watched this, when she said that, like almost like falling out of my chair, being like, wait a minute, you're telling me? Because again, like I guess I assumed, everyone moved to these planets from Earth at some point. This is the future or whatever.
Certainly,
right?
Yeah.
So when she said that, I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then Adama's like, that will be our refuge. We will find Earth. And like everyone's like, no one knows where it is. Well, I know where it is. The High Command knows where it is. It's been a secret from the Cylons. They don't know where we're going. We're going to find Earth. And it's like, in that one line, he's like, that's the goal of the show.
It will be a long, difficult journey.
Well, yeah, that's the goal of the show, is we're going to find Earth. And it just opens up this other mystery box of, like when in Earth? What is Earth like right now? Like, is it present day Earth? Is it the future Earth where we also have space travel? Is it the past? Like, who knows? Like, it was such a tantalizing, like, what's Earth going to be like if they ever find it? I don't know. It was so exciting to me the first time I watched this. And I still think it's a good hook. I still think it's a great hook because it's a really interesting position to put the audience in, where the very thing that they are trying to find, and also, you know, as we find out, like, Rosalind doesn't believe it exists. Adama doesn't even really believe it exists. He basically sold a lie just to give people hope. He admits that to her after this scene. But we, the audience, we know it's real. We inherently have this faith for them that they don't have for themselves right away, because we're on Earth and we believe it. So it's a very interesting relationship the audience has with the faith of the characters on the show. And it's the sort of thing that's so unique to not even just science fiction, but I would say specifically this story. Because I can't think of another example where the audience knows something that the characters in the story only have to like believe in, but we know for a fact is real. And quite a big scale like this.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it gives us a sort of, as you said, a sense of, well, they have to find it eventually, right? Because here we are.
yes. But it's a fun hook, and it's the sort of thing where, you know, this part 2 is pretty good, right? Especially the back half with all of the action and the try to get away and the big decisions that are made by Rosalind and Adama, and their agreement to coexist as like military and government, you know, hand in hand by the end. But this was like such a cool hook, and then you've got the Cylon stuff as well of like, okay, like they're going to keep hunting the humans, so that you've got a chase. Simple terms. How do you do a thrill chase? Well, you do a chase. You make it thrilling. It's that simple. So here we are. So yeah. I mean, definitely. Like,
there was one other little scene it didn't talk about. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you know, that I think they clearly wanted to do a show. I think they made this effectively as a big pilot, because I think they had plans and ideas for what they wanted to do with this stuff. But yeah, on you go. Yeah, what would you want to talk about?
That when Ty goes to see Starbuck in her bunk, he kind of apologizes and says, maybe I was a little hot-headed there, and Starbucks is just like, let me give it to you straight. But the other thing here is Ty initially says the card game was yesterday. Are we supposed to think that all of this has happened in the span of 24 hours? Because honestly, I feel like that's a little, it has to have been a few days, right?
Well, that's a good question. I didn't really think about it too much.
Maybe he just means like they haven't slept since then, really, or something. So it feels like it's just yesterday.
I could believe that part. I mean, I think it felt like the morning, that card game, right? Because it felt like she was up doing her morning jog just before it, right? So that's yesterday morning, and then maybe it's like the end of the night the next day. Maybe that's what we're saying here. But it's hard to tell because we're in space like almost all the time. So
the museum dedication was in between there, because Kara was in the brig then, and so somebody else was taking her place in the honorary flyby, and then the stuff with Rosalind and Colonial One trying to find other ships. I just feel like it has to be a little bit more than just a day.
I believe it's been a day since the nukes all went off. I think everything since then feels like it's all been very like condensed and like just one thing after the other. But you pointed out that they had the whole ceremony about the flybys and stuff. That does make it feel like there was maybe like another day before that, though, to me. But I mean, it's, I don't know, it may be, you know, nitpicking, you know, to
quite possibly. It was really more about the confrontation of the scene between Kara just kind of saying to Saltai, like, you're a drunk old bastard and we both know it.
Yeah,
you know, she is never gonna give him an inch.
It's I actually really like the performance from him in the scene, because as he's saying his like quote unquote apology, which it is an apology, but the way he kind of builds up to it, and it looks uncomfortable as he's saying it, but the way he actually says I'm sorry at the very end of it is so quick and like just like I'm sorry. Like it's like he can't say it and unsay it. He can't like say it with pride. He has to sort of like hide it at the end of the sentence. Like, so I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. Like, it just kind of goes down like that.
I think a big part of this I'm sorry is where 2 of 50,000 or whatever humans still left, we have to be able to coexist. And also he does acknowledge that Starbuck just saved Apollo. That was a hell of a piece of flying or something like that, which it really was, because we didn't really talk about it. Apollo's ship is dead, and Starbuck kind of rams his ship and pushes it into the hangar bay on Galactica before they jump away. So Apollo would have absolutely, definitely died there after they just thought he had died. But no, she does a absolutely crazy maneuver to save him.
Yeah, she basically does like a thing where she sort of interlocks, like forgive the word here, but she basically scissors the ships together so she can fly him into the the landing bay just in time as it's closing. Mm-hmm. But it's an insane visual because once she does it, and it's like, I don't know what it is exactly. Like one of the missile like holders or whatever just sort of interlocks with the other one in his side, and she just kind of like flies him in like that. So it's a really weird visual of these two ships kind of like interconnected.
Yeah, because their cockpits are very close together, so they can like make eye contact as they're talking back and forth over the comm.
I mean, you always want to be making eye contact when your cockpits are interlinked together.
That's what it's called in a plane.
I know. It's called a joke. It's humor.
So, anything else we need to talk about from this episode? I certainly think it gives us a sense of, you're right, optimism, and that there is a mission here, and that we are all in for the ride. We want to see what's going to happen. We want these people to be saved.
Yeah, they'll be.
Does Sharon know she's a Cylon?
Does Sharon know she's a Cylon? That's a good question. Is what Baltar's seen in his head have any truth to it, or is it just his subconscious, or is it a message from God? These are all possibilities, and we're not really sure which way it's going. I will say, like the whole Dee and Billy thing, I like the payoff to it, which is the moment Adama's seeing them and says what he says. Like, I like that kind of inspires his choice. The actual kiss and like the flirting stuff is just kind of like, yeah, I guess. I guess they're attractive enough people to look at each other, but like it's not like I feel that much for either of those characters, at least yet. And
well, initially they see each other in the hallway and she kisses him as just sort of like, oh, thank God, somebody I know is alive. But that's contrasted with Tyrell and Boomer seeing each other and being, oh my God, you're alive. Like there is a real, I can't even believe it, passionate embrace there.
Yeah. No, I mean, like it's fine, but I just don't really those characters I don't think are particularly strong yet. They're kind of, they're very C-tier characters. And, part of this is me bringing my own knowledge from like having seen the whole show. I'm never really going to like Billy that much. I know that. So he always felt like a bit of a thin character to me.
He's sort of a just fine background character. He's very, he's a supporting role kind of guy.
Yeah. But we have so many interesting characters they've got a lot of depth already. Not even including what I know from the later part of the show. Just from these 2 episodes, we have like a good half dozen or so characters that are very, very rich in different ways. You got Adama, you got Roslin. I think Starbuck counts in there. I think Baltar obviously counts, and perhaps to a lesser extent. But I think you do also have Ty and a few others that have already got a little bit of meat in the bones. And the others will get developed as they go. It's tough to judge some of the other characters. Like, how do you judge like Six as a character in the same way that you do a regular? I don't think you can, because by her nature, she's very just mysterious and doesn't have like, at least yet, she doesn't have like a character in the sense of like, oh, I can see what her strengths and weaknesses are, and like, because she isn't that yet. She's like more of like the enigma, like the face of the enigma kind of thing.
Yeah, it must have been really kind of fun and interesting to film the scenes, where Baltar is interacting with another actual person and she's there, nibbling on his ears and whatever, Well, and no one else is able to see her. So
I'm sure that's fun. I'm sure it's like hard for the other actors to try and not acknowledge that she's there in some way. But what I do like it, there's a moment in this episode actually where I think it's after he talks to someone. There's a shot where it's like he's on his own, and in one shot it pans to the person leaving. I think it's Doral when he's leaving the scene, or maybe it was Felix. But either way, the camera pans back to Baltar, and she's sitting on his lap. But they do it in one shot. So I'm imagining on set where like the camera pans to the other character, and then she runs up, and jumps on his lap as quickly as possible, so when the camera comes back, she's already sitting there. And it looks really good in the shot, but when you think about the actual real-world logistics of her having to run up there in her dress, very quickly, it's quite funny to think about. So, But yeah, that's part 2 of the Battlestar Galactica miniseries, which means next time we get to do season 1, episode 1, which, you know, normally you'd start there on a TV show.
I believe I remember being a rather tense episode.
It is. I remember exactly what it is. Like I could tell you the plot.
The same thing.
Like no, I couldn't tell you the exact like every detail, but I could give you the premise of episode 1 quite readily because it's very memorable. Honestly, it's a really cool premise.
Okay, yeah. I don't remember the resolution, but yeah, we'll talk about it next time.
We will. So yeah, let us know what you thought of this episode of Battlestar Galactica in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, if you want to support everything over in here in MailFuzz TV, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep everything coming. But that is us. So thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?